On this episode of Burn the Wagon, we're calling this one The Power of Indigenous Voices. Steph Littlebird comes on to speak about the complexities of Indigenous identity that give insights into their upcoming projects, like a children's book they are illustrating and writing, and how art can be a powerful medium for expressing Indigenous voices. Thank you for listening. Peace and love. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Burn the Wagon podcast, where we're here to burn the wagon that is capitalism, patriarchy, and colonialism. Today, my guest is Steph Littlebird, which I'm super excited. I've had you on back in the day, but I'm going back and re-interviewing people. So it's gonna be nice, and there's a lot has happened since the last time I interviewed you. So super excited. We're just gonna get this prayer out of the way, and then we'll get into the questions. I don't know why I say out of the way, because I shouldn't say that a prayer, but um, I want to send love to anybody out there suffering from domestic violence issues. I want to send love to anybody out there suffering from mental health issues. I want to send love to our unhoused community. I want to send love to the precious Mother Earth. And to you today, we're coming from Pomo territory. And lastly, I want to send love to any of our relatives out in Palestine, Congo, or Sudan that are suffering from the colonization in those areas that we here suffer in Turtle Island as well. Like I said, today my guest is Steph Littlebird. I'm gonna go ahead and let you do an intro, but always start with what tribe or tribes are you from?
Yeah, so I'm Steph Littlebird. I'm an Indigenous artist and author. I'm an enrolled member of the Grand Ronde Confederated Tribes of Oregon, which consists of like 30 different bands and tribes. I am specifically Clatsop, Chinook, and Kalapuyan, and those two tribes come from the northwest part of the Willamette Valley, so the very northern part of the Willamette Valley in Oregon, and a little bit of Washington as well.
Yeah. So where is your res specifically, or is
On
there
my
a res?
res, yeah, we are privileged to have a res, and let's see, it is in Grand Ronde, which is essentially a town that now like sort of shares borders with the Grand Ronde Reservation. So there's a mixture of folks out there, but yeah, Grand Ronde is essentially between Portland and the coast, and they just put us out there because that's where they decided to put us out there. There actually aren't any tribes from that territory really, because there's not a ton of fresh water out there. So, it's not, we made the best of it for sure, but it was not necessarily the choicest of lands that we would have wanted through the treaties. So anyway, but the res is out there now. My tribe is actually very privileged in that we are federally recognized, and so my tribe has lots of resources, and I'm really blessed to be from a tribe that commits so much to its members, because I know that's not necessarily the case for all tribes. And in terms of like the corruption that happens within all tribes, we have it ourselves just like everybody else. And so anyway, with all that being said, I feel really blessed to be from the community that I'm from, because they have really supported my art career and helped me get to this level.
That's awesome. And you said it's not originally where your people are from. So at some point, you guys had to most likely be forcibly moved there, right?
Yeah, so we had our own sort of Trail of Tears here in Oregon. The tribes and bands from the Grand Ronde Confederation, they actually span Northern California, Oregon, and Southwest Washington. So tribes from 3 different states brought to this one place in Northwest Oregon, where we all sort of had to survive together. And a lot of intermixing happened during that era. But yeah, we had our own sort of force marches from various points in Oregon up to Grand Ronde. And that was at the point where, when they first were in the East Coast, they gave out reservations to like individual tribes. By the time they got out to the West, they were sick of fucking dealing with us, and they just smashed us all together and put us in one place. And so Oregon has a really intense history of colonization. While I'm sure all places do, like we were the second home to the second Indian boarding school in the country. So we were really like a beta test ground for Indigenous assimilation. And that is a huge part of our identity here. And so anyway, yeah, where I come from is fraught with really complicated colonial stories that come from all over the place because they really did displace so many people to where I am from. So yeah, but I am actually from like my tribes actually were from Portland proper, like Portland, Oregon, the city.
Mm.
That's where some of our main hunting and fishing grounds are for both tribes. We sort of had overlapping territories. So yeah, Portland is really where I'm actually from and where I sort of grew up for much of my life. So I'm lucky to actually be from my homelands.
Oh, okay, that's a trip. And that's something I like. I was doing research, right? And then you said your version of Trailer Tears. It's like I'm learning now that I'm doing some of these episodes. Like, there's so many of those happening along, like you said, starting at the West Coast or East Coast, and then a lot when they came over, just so many different types of those, where
Mhm.
3 to 4 different tribes were like you said, just pushed in this one area and forced to live with each other, and they might have like crossed paths eventually, but I feel like there's a lot of like when that happens, there's a lot of just like might could be good, but also might be bad things happening, like because they're just like different people. You know what I mean? People think like, oh, we're just native, we're in harmony, but like there's some people that were beefing back in the day, you know?
Well, and just like really cultural differences. That's why I think people don't really, because often people just sort of put us in this homogenized, vision in their head. But like, even within, because I'm Calipoian, but there were actually multiple different bands of Calipoian that spoke different languages. So just because we share genetic traits does not mean we were the same. We all came from different parts of the land, so we had different ways of life. Even one of the sort of infamous ones around here is the Klamath Modoc Reservation. So Klamath and Modoc put together, and now you'll meet a lot of people who are both, but they will tell you that when they had to share that territory and share that reservation, they did not get along, and that is still true today, that there is a lot of conflict still because culturally speaking they were vastly different, and the government was just like smash them together and let them work it out. And so um on top of having to deal with every fucking thing else. So anyway, but I think that goes towards how people see us as like we're all the same. We didn't have identities outside of whatever white man wanted to see. So anyway, it's just like, oh my God, there's so much more nuance to these conversations that a lot of people just cannot really understand unless they're from our community.
Yeah, and it's like, you guys are indigenous, so you guys can kick it, right? Like,
Not
like yes,
always.
yes, we can, but like at the same time, like there's a lot of differences in between tribes. Even
Mhm.
like there's a tribe only 30 minutes away from me that is like very close, right? But like we have a lot of differences in our
Mhm.
language, the way like songs are sang, the way certain ceremonies are done. It's super different, and that's what like not a lot of people I think kind of like realize, like you said.
I was just having a conversation with one of my elders, when I went out to the powwow on our res this weekend, and, our community is facing the reality that not no one is immune to the fascistic programming that Donald Trump has sort of wrought on this country, and that includes our community, and that includes people on my own tribal council, and the elders in my tribe being concerned that our tribal council has been hijacked by these people, and what's going to happen in the next how many ever years with these people making decisions is actually really concerning because they totally believe in what he's saying, and trying to sort of break away from federal regulation, essentially, like almost like they want to give back recognition in some way. Like it's like, oh no, we should probably keep the federal government involved in this until this like brain rot of a ideology is gone, because they essentially wanted to take the BIA out of our elections recently so that they would only be run by tribal council. And that's like No fucking way, because at least in the BIA right now, there are career people who understand federal law and will make sure that shit goes transparently as it always has before. But we have people right now who are trying to hijack it and basically make shit not transparent. And that is fucking scary. And thinking about how, my tribe got recognition just a year before I was born in like 1983. And so I have been blessed to be alive and to have my tribe have recognition. But like, that could be gone at any time because Donald Trump doesn't give a fuck about us. And so he could, as he's dismantling the rest of the government, go ahead and dismantle the BIA, the fucking Department of the Interior, and all of the treaties that have been agreed upon, So I don't put that past him at all. And so seeing how insidious that ideology has sort of crept also into the minds of the people making decisions for our community is terrifying. And so it is real in that our community has differences of opinions all the time.
I think so much. I mean, I don't know for sure, but it seems like a lot of my community did vote for him, and it's like I feel like you said, like our brains have been just like so corrupted and just so just twisted to the fact that we like there are people that voted for him because they thought it was funny.
Yeah.
So it's like what I don't like. I don't know. Like I don't understand. Like there's so much that is gonna about to be taken away from us. Like and it already has. Like straight up. Like so I don't. And there are tribes like there's a tribe in down south a little bit in Santa Rosa that they're huge. They're got a huge casino, billions of dollars a year, every year, right? And then supposedly they started giving like millions to like Republican like, and right before that they were like supposed to be like, and it doesn't matter. They're all both the same shit. But you know what I mean? But like the Republicans are out there like blatantly being racist, blatantly taking, and they're actually like a native tribe is like donating billions of dollars to those campaigns, and it's just like blows my mind to like I don't know.
It blows my mind that people can't see the connection between what's happening and what has happened, and not see the rhetoric that's being applied to other groups like, folks coming over the border or people in Gaza. All of this ideology that initially hurt our ancestors and destroyed our culture is just being done again. It's textbook. It's so obvious. When I first learned about Gaza many years ago, it was like, oh my God, this is, when I read about this, it sounds like a reservation, what they're doing to them, right? And now it's like even more clear. They're doing forced marches. They're dislocating them. It's the diaspora. It's the same shit. And then destroying their centers of culture, just like they did with us, so that they could just say we were savages and terrorists or whatever the fuck term you want to apply to it, right? So anyway, it's all the same. It's just being repackaged, and it's so sad to see people in my community who are descendants of genocide and are just lucky that their ancestors survived, as opposed to the other ones who didn't, that now they get to vote for Donald Trump because they think it's a fucking joke. And it's like, oh no, he doesn't like Native people. He is on record many times saying that he doesn't like us. And I have no doubt that at some point we will become the target, because he's going through Project 2025 like point by point right now. And it's like, since people never read the shit, they don't realize that all of this is in this book. And like, you can go and see what they're going to do next because they fucking tell you, and they are literally just marking stuff off the list right now. So one of those is making it so that our lands are available for private interests. That's why they tried to overturn ICWA a couple of years ago. It's because they wanted access to our resources. And the first way to do that is to undo sovereignty, to say that we actually aren't sovereign nations and that our land should be accessible to oil companies and whoever the fuck wants it. So anyway, Yeah, I think that we are facing a big reality check and that we have been very privileged for those who come from enrollment, who come from federal recognition. The things that we have enjoyed up until this point are on the chopping block. And I feel really sad for the young people who are kind of coming up in what I would consider as like a renaissance. Like there is so much happening within our community right now and so much amazing stuff being created by Indigenous people in this world. And at the same time, all of this really terrible shit is happening. And so I just keep hoping that the young people now, the culture bearers, will hold on and make it through and not all get fucking brainwashed by Donald Trump's bullshit and figure out a way to carry it forward because we've been here for, 25, 30,000 years doing this and it's up to us to keep it alive now because these guys have been here 250 years and they're fucking ruining everything. So we have to find whatever resilience we were given through our genetics and our unique descendancy. And we have to activate that shit now because it's happening again. And I think that's what people are just being lulled into submission and that they are, everything's a joke. Like you said, people voted for him as a joke, but it's like, no, this is going to have real consequences. Like, your daily life is going to be impacted by this and your elders' daily life and the young people, like children who can't even access books anymore, being in the publishing industry right now has been really crazy because a couple of years ago when I first started, I was getting contracts, boom, 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 all the time. And now this year since Donald Trump took office, no contracts. And, when I was kind of coming up as an artist, my elders told me, yeah, right now natives are popular. And so take every opportunity you can. If people want to send you, to do something and they want to pay you, take the opportunity because you never know when that's going to change because this culture has turned its back on us so many times and I can feel it. I can feel it's happening again because the publishing industry is not buying native work right now. They're taking all the DEI stuff that they were really invested in and now it's all no, now we have to produce only white books about white ideology and conservative ideology, even though that's not what sells. It's not what sells, but they are afraid of being targeted. And so, yeah, and then he also defunded 125,000 public libraries. So when you think about all of those libraries and how many children they serve, how many books they buy, he is going to crush the industry. So anyway, it's a very strange time to be alive because there is a lot of joy and there is also a lot of pain. And so navigating that is really complicated.
I was at a ceremony and I heard a kid say, "He's going to take away our taxes."
I
I
wish.
was like, "What, dude?" I just let it be and I just kept it moving with my life. Like, I was like, I'm not going to get into this conversation.
Time will
But
show that's not true.
exactly, unless you're making a certain amount of money a year, he's not helping you out. And even then, if you're a brown or black person that's making that money, he may treat you a certain way, but he still don't like you.
No, yeah.
And it's not just him, but it's the people around him and the people that are in the systems like him.
Mhm.
But I like what you said that like right now it's a really weird time because you're right. Our communities are thriving. Our communities, there are people that are want to go out and dance. There are people that are want to learn language, that are wanting to learn songs. But then we're on this other half where a lot of it is getting taken away. Um, so yeah, and like speaking of super amazing things being created by Native people, I wanted to jump into the Kalipuyan art exhibit that you hosted at what was it? What museum was it?
The Five Oaks Museum was where it was originally shown. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So let's jump into that whole exhibit and what people are seeing when they go and see that exhibit.
So, basically, what it was originally was an exhibition about my tribe, about the Kalipoyan people, and it was done like essentially 15 years prior to me being invited to the museum. And the museum had just been taken over by new directors who were artists. They weren't coming into the museum from like the museum world. They were
Mm.
wild artists who are queer and, sort of like looking to change things. And they asked me to come look at the exhibition because it was one of their most popular, but they also like recognized that it had errors, it had biases in it. And so they were like, "Can you come look at this thing and tell us what we should do with it?" And I was like, they basically were like, "Do you want us to throw it in the garbage?" That's basically what they were trying to figure out. And I was like, you know what? This would be a great opportunity to teach people about what happens when Native people aren't consulted when stories are told about them. And so what I did was, instead of throwing it away or making new panels, we actually took these museum panels that had, pictures and text about my tribe. And we actually went through and I hand edited them like with a Sharpie, like a teacher going through somebody's paper and just like crossing stuff out and writing stuff over the top and really just trying to call out different information, recontextualize information. And then what I did was I made all of these edits in collaboration with one of our tribal historians. And so we worked on editing all of the information to be correct and reflect a less biased perspective. But then I also incorporated contemporary Indigenous art. And this was my very first exhibition as a curator. And so it was like I was definitely in over my head, but I somehow made it happen, and it turned out amazing. It got national attention, and we had, documentarians coming to like visit when it first opened, and then we had PBS NewsHour did a segment on it as well, and now it's sort of it travels. It's like a traveling exhibition, and so it's been hosted by other museums, including the Piddock Mansion Museum, which is in Portland. Um, and yeah, so it's like, to me was a way to show how these institutions, um, they can get it wrong. And while we go into places of history, or museums, and we think that we should trust everything that we read in there, that actually they don't always get it right. And they are oftentimes those people, particularly when they're in the like archaeology or the study of humans. I can't remember what that one is called, but these
Anthropology.
anthropology, the anthropologists in particular love to romanticize us or put ascribe their own meanings to things without ever consulting us. And so there was a ton of bias, and uh it was really powerful for people to see the edits, because really when you go into a museum and you see those big like fancy panels with writing about history and stuff, they're actually kind of boring and a lot of people don't really read them. But because I had went and marked them all up, people were like, what is it, what's here, like what kind of error did they make here? And so it was really fun because I just saw all of these things that get replicated as like sort of like biased racism ideology about how, we didn't really know that much and we were savages or whatever. But it's like, actually, we had a thriving culture here for, tens of thousands of years. And actually now our culture is sort of reviving itself, and white folks are coming to us for our knowledge because our knowledge of the land is unprecedented. And so I think there's like a sort of vindication in that knowing, which is that our knowledge is always put down by these institutions as not being like legit. Like, never trust an Indian to tell you about themselves. You got to hear it from an anthropologist because they really know, right? And so an example of that would be in the in the exhibition. There is something that talks about how long we've been on the land. And so 20 years ago when this thing was made, it said that we had only been on the land for 9,000 years. And that's not true. We know it's not true because many tribes here in the Pacific Northwest have stories of the Missoula floods. And they were just like these massive glacial floods that came down from up north in Canada and farther north. Well, I guess it's all Canada. But anyway, basically these huge mudslides that came down and created the gorge in the Willamette Valley, like that happened about 13 to 15,000 years ago. And so we have stories of that flood, of that time that we survived, which means that we were there before, you know? And so we have stories of it, but it wasn't until about like 2 or 3 years ago that science sort of moved it back even farther. When I first made the exhibition, they had just moved it to 15,000 years. So they admitted that we'd been here at least since the Missoula floods, but they wouldn't admit that we'd been here longer. And then it got moved to 20,000 years a couple of years later. And now it's at 23 to 25. We think it's probably a bit longer than that too, but science is sort of, inching towards indigenous knowledge. And so that says something about us, and it says something about our ability to carry history forward just fine without written language. And so anyway, I think that, yeah, that's something where it's like these little things that we just take for granted because these institutions are given so much authority, but in actuality, they are run by human beings. And so human beings are imperfect no matter
Yep.
what their, educational background is, right? And particularly academics, because they love to think that they know the most. And so it's always fun to correct their work. Like that's for a native person to be like, no, you're fucking wrong.
Yep.
Sorry, bro. Whatever book you read that from was inaccurate, But anyway, yeah, that's just my petty self. But anyway.
And that's something I was gonna ask too, is like what that feeling is like telling, because these institutions are mainly made for white men. And
Mhm.
obviously throughout the years they've allowed white women to put themselves in there, but like all these institutions created for white men by white men, mostly anthropologists who are telling these stories, are white men who don't know shit. um what's that feeling like, being like you said, no, you're wrong? Like, just, I don't know, I feel like the pettiness in me would be like, oh yeah.
When I first started, hadn't been through my recent racist social media training that happened. I don't know if you've been paying attention to my social media account, but the last year has been really intense with the racism and stuff. And so I have like sort of been trained up by these people in my comments, particularly white men who are mad at me for making work about Pocahontas and John Smith. And so at first I didn't know how to respond because I come from an abusive home where I was told to always be quiet when men were speaking to me. And it was only in the last couple of years have I really grown out of those behaviors and recognized that I deserve to have an opinion just like the men in my life do, and really like learn to have a voice. And so this experience this year with having all these racist people on my account was like at first kind of jarring, but then I just started to learn and I started to become better at debating and also recognizing when they weren't actually arguing in good faith, they're just trolling me. And
Mm.
so that was a huge sort of learning thing for me because I love to torture men, particularly white men. I like to trigger them because they are very easily triggered. And then they just say the same stuff to me. Like they have a script. All of them read from the same script and say the same stuff. And so it's really fun to just like basically bait them and get them mad because they call us snowflakes, but in fact, they are the biggest snowflakes of them all. And so anyway, it's become like a little sport for me and I'm learning to be much more petty than I ever was before. And I love it because they're not scary to me anymore. These angry men who used to scare me and control my behavior, much like fascists do, they don't scare me anymore because I realize they're all just saying the same shit. They're like little robots. So they don't have unique thoughts.
It's
And that
all,
to me is like,
yeah, it's all surface, like they have like the couple like things they can comment right away, right? But then you start trying to have a conversation deeper than that, and then it's like, Oh, no, you can only throw insults. That's your only. You're still in middle school. Like your brain still like functions like a middle schooler, and it's not able to like have a thoughtful conversation.
No critical thinking,
Yes.
because I think that that's really what I learned is that if a person immediately gets defensive and then, like particularly on the Pocahontas work where they basically say that she deserved it, that she's not a victim, and that she loved being colonized and trafficked. And so, that to me is like reveals something about themselves, and that reveals something about like how they see women. And I think, oh, well, I can't even have a real conversation with you because you don't even think we're human beings, right? So I'm not even going to try to educate you. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just going to tell you that you have a tiny penis and then watch you freak the fuck out in my comments because and so it's really fun. Again, like because it's so predictable, it actually is like it's and somewhat entertaining. I don't do it. I like had to take a step back from it because I was like, I don't want to spend all my time arguing with random men on the internet. So from what I learned from it, I took a lot, but I also think, these people are, if you know anything about narcissism, people like that who need to go online and abuse strangers, it's because they are abusive to themselves, they are abusive to people around them, and, really, like, I don't have any, like I don't owe them anything, right? Like, these people came knocking on my door being abusive, like, I don't owe them the time of day, or I don't owe any niceness to them either, and that's something, like, as a, person who is socialized as a woman in a conservative household, like, I'm supposed to just, like, you know do whatever people want me to do, right? But it's like, "Oh, no, actually, I can just say no to this conversation and be like, you know what? You're not coming to me in earnest. You don't actually care about my humanity or how this impacts my community. So, like, why would I give you any of my attention? Because that's really what they're looking for. They just need attention. And it doesn't matter if it's negative because they're just lonely. Ultimately, these people are super lonely. So, at least
And
there's like something in that that gives me solace where it's like I make this work because I want my community to feel seen, but if these people are being triggered by my work so much, it says something about them and where they are in their own lives that they're on the internet being upset about these things. And so I just thank them most of the time now for boosting my content because their relentless comments are really just putting it into the algorithm even more.
yeah, absolutely. And like I feel like most of these white fragile men are just like fighting a lot of things on the inside that they hate about themselves.
Hmm.
Like a lot of them I feel like are like closeted, like they want to, they're inside are having gay, they want to be gay, they want to have relationships with men in the inside because it happens a lot, especially out here in the sticks. Well, guys will get drunk, right? And they
But yeah.
start having like start touching guys' butts or saying like certain things, right? And it's like, oh, I see what's going on here. Like a lot of this community is like really fighting a lot of things that's going on in the inside.
Yeah, they're deeply repressed emotionally, and when you're emotionally repressed, it makes sense that you would be repressed in other ways that relate to, like, your own being your authentic self, right? But actually, they've done studies, and men who are super homophobic, like, outwardly homophobic, or men who essentially hate women, it's because they are closeted, and it's because they're mad at the world that they can't be who they see other people being, And so when cis men are policing gay men's behavior, it's because they're mad that that person is acting authentically and that they themselves have been repressed inside by other people and their own choice, that instead of choosing to be authentic, they would rather police other people. And that's actually a huge conversation right now with the sort of digital feminism movement that's happening with like TikTok and social media generally, women talking, like sharing. Sorry, there's a loud car driving by. Um, Sharing about their experiences with finding out that their their former boyfriends or whatever were DL, and they find out because, they discover that they're on Grinder or some shit like that, right? And then it's like, oh well, they hate women, they treat me like garbage and blah blah blah. And it's like, these behaviors are a reflection of what's happening inside. And men who are abusive, men who, just cannot be happy in their lives, it's usually because they're repressing something inside. And, we project. I think learning to spot projection is like really powerful because then you see it. It's like the men in my comments who say, well, you guys are so stupid. You are lucky we colonized you. And I'm like, is that how your dad talks to you? Like, why are you talking to me like that? You don't know if I'm stupid. And
Yeah.
and it's like, wow, that's amazing that you can project all of these things onto me. And my guess is that you feel stupid and you feel mad that this information confronted your critical thinking skills and you don't want to deal with that. And it also is emotional regulation, right? These people who have repressed their emotions don't know how to regulate them. So when they get um, confronted by something that conflicts with their version of reality, they get defensive. And so there's like these tells. It's kind of like poker, where you're like, you're only doing that thing with your eye because you're mad that I told you the truth. It's like,
And
and
that
if you can do that, it takes a lot of their power away.
yeah. And that's something because this last school year I was helping with social emotional learning in the middle schools.
Oh, nice.
And like that's something I'm like just like reading all the like the curriculum and stuff that we have to like teach. Like, yeah, a lot of us are just like do not men especially do not know how to like regulate our emotions. Never
Hmm.
given the right tools, never even told like it was okay to like anger and sometimes happiness is cool.
Yeah, those are your only two options, right?
It's like super wild. Like we're human beings. Like just let that shit flow.
Hmm.
Um, and I was gonna say, I feel like a lot of those guys are like projecting about like people being in their own lives and living their life, being able to be gay, right? They're mad that other guys are touching butts that they want to touch and they can't, or
And
they can, but they're repressing themselves.
it's like the guys who are obsessed with Trump, and it's like it's in their screen name and their pictures of Trump, and they have a Trump rap, and I'm like, just say you like the company of men, bro. Just say it. Just admit it so that you can like move on
A
because
100%.
it's like a hyper fixation because they're not allowed to have it. It's like a kid who's been told they can't have a candy bar. Until they have that candy bar, they're going to think about it forever. So
24/7. That's true. That's 100% true. Like having all this like one man, especially a politician, that be that like so much of that's your life. Like I don't know. But yeah, you mentioned your Pocahontas artwork, and then you also mentioned being in the publishing world, and you did talk about you're going to be publishing a book. Not only are you doing the artwork, but you're also doing the writing as well. So let's talk
yes.
about that, and we'll talk about some of the other projects that you got going as well.
So, it's my author debut, and it's gonna be my ninth book, uh, that's coming out. It actually comes out in February, and, it's with Penguin Random House, so it's, like, nationwide release, but, it's called You Are the Land, and it's basically, like, trying to teach young people about their connection to the earth and through this through the lens of indigeneity, because I feel like we're really lucky that we come from a culture that's just like built in, like, oh yeah, you're part of the earth, you're an extension of it, you are connected to all things because this is who you are too. And I feel really lucky to know that, but that's true of all human beings. It's really just that we have this cultural value. And so I thought, well, if I could teach this cultural value to other people, because I feel like they do feel it. They feel like they want to be connected to the earth, but they really don't know how to enter into those relationships, right? Because white culture, white supremacy is very individualistic, and it says like you should feel shame for wanting to be connected. You should feel shame for wanting these things, and we're just lucky that our community doesn't think that that's like um gay or something. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah,
like toxic masculinity has ruined everything. And
everything.
so the story is like from the perspective of a child and their grandparents, their parents, all their community is teaching them about their connection to the land and how they are like the land. And so it's really like a way to show how those values are instilled in us. And it was a way for me to sort of give it's like a love letter to my community, because I didn't grow up with great parents, but I did have Indigenous people in my life, like my grandparents and my great aunts, and those people who taught me values that come from my community. And then my community taught me those values too. And my community continues to teach me these values even deeper and deeper every time. So I think like that's really special, and I want people to have like a window into what that actually means. And so, it is very like poetic, but then there are parts that are like somewhat political, and that like the child's mother teaches them how to care for the earth, and that includes protest. And so there's like a scene of a child being at a protest with its community members, and that like that's part of being part of the earth, is speaking up for the earth, and so anyway, I'm really proud of it, and I'm just so excited to share it with folks, because I feel like we need messages like this right now, because folks do feel so disconnected. And with climate change being a very real thing and something that we are continually having to confront more and more every year, like people need to wake up to the fact that, if we aren't taking care of the earth, we're not taking care of ourselves. And that is like at our own peril if we do not take care of the environment that we live in, because the environment that we live in is also ourselves. So anyway, I'm really proud of it, and just excited to share it with folks, and because I know that at least from the work that I've been making as an artist on Instagram, that message of "you are the land" has been really powerful for people, and that it like made them reframe their relationship to the earth. And I was like, well, if I'm making like individual pictures about this, like I could tell a whole story about it. And so anyway, I'm really excited, because it's like the first time that I actually am a published author. So it's my first book that I actually wrote and not just illustrated. So I'm very excited, the whole thing all by myself.
Heck yeah. So what for you, what comes first in the process? Do you start drawing the pictures first and then you're like, all right, this is what the scene's gonna be? Or are you like, all right, I kind of have an idea of what the scene is gonna like, because you said this is your first time writing, or like, you know what I mean? So like, what came first for you?
So, well, how it works in the publishing industry is that the manuscript comes first, but
Oh,
because I'm an
okay.
artist, as I'm writing the manuscript, I'm thinking about the images. And so
Ah,
the words will get shaped by what I'm trying to show. And so I think that's what sort of sets me apart from a lot of folks, is that I can do the whole process. And so my vision is like pretty fleshed out in the very beginning. And like when I sold my manuscript, I also sold like essentially a sketch version of the entire book with it, so they
mm,
could see what it looked like before I actually did the whole thing. And so that's not something that is typical. Like some artists are authors, but a lot of our authors are not artists. And
yeah.
so much of the work I've done in the publishing industry up until this point has been just as an artist, making other people's stories come to life, which is a privilege and so fun to do, particularly because I get to do it with native authors that I love. But getting to do the whole thing was so cool, because I got to make the pictures before, through the manuscript. I got to decide what was important and how I would depict it. And so that for me is really cool, because I have always done these things separately. I have been a writer professionally for a long time, and also been a professional artist for a long time, but have never been able to combine them in this way. And so it's really cool. It's like I feel like it's my life's work, and if I die tomorrow, then as long as the book comes out, then I've made my purpose on this earth. And so yeah, I'm really excited for it.
And when does that come out?
It comes out in February of 2026. I think it's like somewhere in the late February, I think around the 20th, but I can't remember the exact date right now.
Heck yeah. That's so awesome. And because like that's what something I noticed is in the books that you've illustrated and especially with this one is empowerment, right? And like I think that's super, super important to start at a young age, right? Is get that empowerment in for them to be native. And I asked my cousin like a while back about the naming process of his daughter because he started like I see that in a lot like people are starting to name their kids traditional names, right? And he told me, yeah, that's super important because from the beginning of their lives, they know that a native word. So that just starts off that like spark that starts off that strength for them. And that's something I really appreciate about your books is like that like empowerment for our youth.
You know what? It's so important, and I think, like, particularly growing up in a world where we didn't have those things and, like, the only representation I had as was, Western movies and fucking Pocahontas, so it's like, it's my job now to put those things in, to put those things into the world so that young people can feel empowered, and so, I needed this content, and I feel like I feel like there must be other young people who need it too. I have another book coming out next month. It's called Body Beautiful, and it's my very first non-native book, and it's made about young people and body positivity. And so that's something else that has impacted me my whole life is like self-love and learning to love myself and my body. That's something that was not taught to me and that this world really does not encourage. And so I collaborated with an author who is Jewish to write a story that talks about how all bodies are beautiful, that, like the word fat doesn't have to be bad. And that,
Hmm.
it's like really how we frame these things and that everyone is beautiful and like tying the body to nature again and like this way where I can sort of bring my cultural values to the table, but do it for all kids. And so, representing a diversity of bodies, disabled bodies, brown bodies, like really bringing my full self as a creative who cares so much about the world, including my community, but the broader community as well of, just people in general. Like, I am a humanist and I really want people to live abundantly and happily. And I think, it's like if we all could live abundantly and happily, maybe we wouldn't have so many internet trolls. You know what I mean? And so it's like I want young people to grow up with affirmation as opposed to like negative, hate yourself messaging, And so I'm really proud of all of the work that I have been able to do in the publishing industry up until this point. Even if I never get another book contract, I feel like the books that I have made to this day really represent like my values and are translating that for young people, which I think is like really the highest purpose that my work can serve is impacting the next generation, right? Like that's what our community cares about is making sure that, the next generation and the, 6, 7 after that are um, set up for success.
Yeah, because think about it, right? Like somebody could buy one of those books, one of your books that you illustrated, or one of these that's about to come out, right? And because like there's books that I got in back in the day that were read to me that were read to my older cousins, right? That could happen for generation after generation where it's the same book. You know what I mean? And like I hope that that type of stuff happens for your books. I know it's gonna happen, but it's like I just see that stuff happening, like, and I just like that's just such a beautiful feeling to be able to like think about. You know what I mean?
That means a lot to me because as an artist, I'm sure as as just like being a maker and creator of things is like you hope that what you're doing will have purpose, that will have meaning in the world, right? That we're not just like making this stuff in isolation and abstraction, but that it can actually make an impact on someone. And so, that's really all I want is that I know that there are people in my world as a young person who made an impact on me, and so I'm really just trying to do the same thing that folks have done for me and hope that there is some young person who might be comforted or saved by these messages.
And yeah, it's super like sometimes I am like, man, like what am I doing? Like, am I really like, am I? Because I'll probably never see the fruits of this labor. You know what I mean? I'll never see, and that's okay. I'm not like, I understand that, but like sometimes I do get like a little discouraged, especially because like the times that we're living in, where like things are getting taken away from us, and like I'm like, damn, like I have a really super Mexican name. Like, do I want to put myself out there? Or, like, I'd put my face out there on the internet, and my brand is Burn the Wagon. It's like a super, like, people get super triggered by it. So
Mhm.
sometimes it is like, and like you were talking about earlier, the racist comments, like, it does get like, damn, like, do I really want to put my brain through this? But then I tell myself, fuck that. I'm down. I'm not trying to back down. Like, I'm not scared. You know what I mean? And like, it's just, yeah, like, I do agree with that. Sometimes it does get like, damn, am I making impact? I hope I am. You know?
I feel that same way. People are like, "Oh, your art is so amazing." It's like, "Yeah, but I'm just a person who is toiling away in my little apartment, and like I can hope that, things are going to make an impact, but it's like nihilism is really easy to sort of slip into in this world where every day is like another crisis." And so here's what I'll tell you, because I totally like so deeply relate to what you just said. And like even the idea, some of the work that I have made recently, thinking about how I could be targeted, because I travel often for my job in publishing, and like having to archive all my political posts on Instagram because I was going to go through TSA, and knowing that if they if they saw what I drew of Donald Trump and Elon Musk, they will be fucking pissed, you know? So, but like that's real shit. We have to think about these things because our personal safety is at risk. And so, particularly as activists, right? Because we really care about our community, and we're doing things like getting the word out. Like what you're doing is activism. The idea that you're even amplifying other people's voices is so important, because that's how we know we're not alone, right? Like this conversation is so fills my cup, because I know that there are other people just like you in the world who are thinking about the same shit and grappling with the real ramifications, And so just know that you're not alone, and that we're all dealing with this in our own way. But like what keeps me going is knowing that my ancestors survived um unspeakable shit. And so right now, while things are hard, I still have my hands. I still am legally allowed to make art and put it on the internet. So I'm gonna keep fucking doing it. And they're not gonna fucking stop me until they fucking arrest me. And that's kind of how it feels. And so obviously we have to protect ourselves and be as safe as we need to be, and take care of our nervous systems, and ignore the racist trolls when we have to, but also like take a little bit of that pettiness from your ancestors, that will to survive that cannot be killed, and remember that we come from the most resilient of them all, and that that's why we're here, and
Yep.
that's why we're doing what we are doing, is because we descend from those people.
Yeah, just seeing people like you said, just seeing your art out there, it's like, okay, like, and just like the homie Lee that I interviewed a while back, like seeing like him post like his pictures, right? That's like my motivation. Like, there's somebody that I follow that's becoming like doing her stuff to become a doctor, right? That's like, oh, that's why, okay, like, dang, like there's people out here doing things. So like I can interview people for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? Like, because there's so many amazing people in our communities doing dope shit, artists, activists, just even just storytell like culture bearers, you know what I mean? Like, they have stories as well. Like, there's just too much in our communities not to do amplify our voices, you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I go,
there's so much talent in our community, it's crazy. Like, the talent pool in the Indigenous community is deep, and people don't realize that, but Indigenous excellence is real, and that's because nobody expects anything of us, so we have to try 1,000 times harder than anyone else to do shit, and that's why, we know how to grind and get what the fuck we need to get to where we're going, and so that's the one thing that I know that sets me apart from a lot of people is, like, I'm not the best artist. I'm not a fucking Renaissance painter, but what I am is persistent. What I am is dedicated and obsessed with the thing that I do. And because of that alone, that makes me better and better. It makes me better. It doesn't matter what time you check on me, I'll be getting better at what I do because I just don't stop. It doesn't mean that I'm like actively trying to get better. It just happens over time because you're dedicated to your practice, right? And so, anyway, it's like, our community is so amazing, and I'm so proud to be from this community that has, like, just crazy talent in it, and that's actually why it's so cool to be alive in this moment because we're seeing the resurgence of culture, whereas those who came before saw the decimation, saw the destruction of culture, and so that's why we have to resist what's happening because that's what they're trying to do again, and so we have to fight for it just like those who came before us because we've been here much longer than they have, and so our claim on this land is much longer than theirs, and our identities are much deeper and richer. And so that's the one thing that keeps me going is just knowing how special we really are. No matter how badly they've degraded us through their history books, we know the truth because we can see it all around us.
And always think it's funny that when like I hear like white kids be like, "I'm fifth generation." It's like
You
that's
barely
cute.
got here.
Yeah, yeah, like that's cute. But yeah, on this last one, I want to ask you because this is something I saw on a podcast that I watch, and I really like the vibe of this question, just to see what people would say to themselves. There's what advice would you give to your 16-year-old self? Because like for me myself, I always say I don't even know if I would listen. So like I just like to see people how people would kind of like conversate with themselves.
I came from a real small town of like 500 people. Most of them were white farmers, and I no one dreamed for me. No one thought I would do anything with myself, including my own parents. And so at 16, I was an artist then. I've been an artist my whole life, but people were just like, that's not it's not a legitimate pursuit. And so if I was to be able to meet my probably pretty annoying 16-year-old self again, I would be like, "Don't listen to these people because if you follow this calling that's in your heart, that it's gonna take you places that you can't even dream of, and that, things that I have done in my life up until this point because of my art, I could not have dreamed of as a younger person because no one taught me how to dream, and so, instead of learning how to dream, I have just learned how to be open to all the possibilities because my brain isn't really good at thinking up all the things that I could do because no one taught me how to. So I have to just imagine that the possibilities are freaking endless. And so that really keeps me going now is this idea that actually you couldn't even dream this shit up. And so you should just be excited for what's going to come. And, in spite of all the things that, you're up against, you're gonna make it out of here. And so it's like now I can go back to the place that I came from and it's not this place of pain. It's much more like a place of I transcended. And so I feel really proud of that because it is a place of hopelessness in many ways. And so I made something of myself and really no one thought that I would. And I feel really proud of that.
And it's insane that people would say that art isn't a like a a pathway, right? Because like I feel like everything, like so many people, businesses need artists. Like just artists are just like needed throughout our society. Like so, it's like it's so weird that people tell kids that. And why are you telling kids to not follow their dreams in the first place? I don't know.
A lot of parents, they project their own
Sure.
aspirations onto their children, or their own lack of aspirations. I grew up with laborers. My dad was a logger. He's a Native American logger. And so, like, his job was literally cutting down trees as an indigenous person. Like, his soul had already been sacrificed at that point, and very much his life is very much soulless in that way because he is deeply assimilated. And so that was something I knew I didn't want either. Was I didn't want to be assimilated. I knew there was something wrong. And so that's part of being from our community too, is that if you're listening and you pay attention to our history, this whole thing is a fucking scam. And
Yeah.
so, all these things that they make us do to participate in capitalism and be a part of quote unquote American culture it's all a scam. And once you learn that, it's really freeing because you can just see how everything is fake anyway. And so, yeah, the what are you gonna do, dude? You can come and live in this world and you can follow other people's dreams or you can follow your own. And I think that ultimately, like I said, if I die tomorrow, at least I know I did. I chased my dreams. I chased them down. And so I know for a fact that if you are dedicated to what you love, you can manifest that shit. But you have to just be relentless. I'm fucking 41. It took me a long time to get here, but it's because I would not stop. So
And I grew up the same way with people like, because I wanted to try things like poetry and fucking theater and act and stuff, but like I was always told those things are like feminine or that's gay, dude. You know what I mean? So like I grew up with the same like being told that like that's not the right. You don't want to do that. So I was
Mhm,
like always same way, just same thing, just like always doing what other people told me or following what other people told me was the right way.
mhm.
Never like going in here and be like, what do I want to do?
Yeah, check in with yourself on that one, right?
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I appreciate you coming on and just telling your story, telling people what your art is, like just letting people know that like first of all, Pocahontas was a fucked up story and she didn't deserve what happened to her. But yeah, your art is super provoke like it's like I love it because like you said, it puts white men on their toe. It upsets them, and that's what they need. Like, you know what I mean? We need people doing Native women, especially, just fucking fuck them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care.
It's just truth telling. There's
Yeah,
really nothing to it. It's just telling the truth, and that's what makes them mad. So, it's not that hard. You just gotta speak truth to power, and the rest of the tantrums will happen all on their own.
let it happen. I don't care. But
Mhm.
I super appreciate you coming on and just taking time out of your day to have a conversation with me. Looking forward to all the books that are coming out. You said you have next month and then um
February.
February. So be on the lookout for those, and please let me know where the people can find that because I want to be able to put the links in the description of this episode. So yeah,
Yeah, anywhere the books are sold, but I always, suggest bookshop.org because it's, like, a small as opposed to, like, going to Amazon. You can go to Amazon and pre-order on there, but bookshop.org is really awesome because then you can also, like, you can donate to smaller booksellers and things like that. So, anyway, I just, like to support, independent
yes,
booksellers if I can.
absolutely. Again, thank you so much, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
You as well, my dear. Thank you.